Also, what's the name of our podcast? What we're doing here?
Welcome to Lantyn Labs. We're in the labs, we're cooking up. What happens?
What happens here? It feels like we do a whole bunch of stuff and then we talk about it, but at Lantyn Labs, we are exploring the actual everyday uses of AI in our world and beyond.
I think in ways that people might not expect. We both come from non-technical backgrounds, although we both had a lot of experience in AI.
Yeah.
I'm sure whoever's listening or watching can't move for mention of AI at the moment. But we just think about how we can use it in our everyday lives. We're starting our own business together, which is an AI consultancy to help people use AI for their businesses and their lives. But in the process, we're constantly building weird and wonderful things. Not all of them work, but to help us with our own personal issues, professional issues, and everything in between.
Yeah. I mean, that's it, right? I think there's, you just literally said it. This entire space is this absolutely crowded with people talking about things, and I just got back from Cannes, the advertising film festival in Cannes, and it was really interesting for me to sort of spend time listening to where the rest of the creative industries are in terms of their sort of thinking about AI and this idea of so many people talking about it, and there's been so many ways that it was spoken about, but actually where now where I think the next step is actually people making stuff, and I'm
So did you find that while everyone was talking about it, and I found the same at South by Southwest, even if the panel wasn't about AI, they would mention it, but you felt like there was a lack of people actually doing interesting stuff with it?
I think there was a lot of people doing really interesting things with it, and it was really nice to seek them out. And some of the people that I was lucky enough to meet were just absolutely phenomenally inspirational. From the way that they were using tools to what they were creating with those tools. And really, I think the things that resonated with me the most were things that were stepping outside of just trying to make things productive, because there was a bunch of people that I met that were talking very much about how AI can, I think for a lot of people, the A in AI basically just meant analytics, or it meant some sort of way of figuring the world out. And actually the people that I really enjoyed speaking to were really people who thought about AI with play involved and curiosity. And there was a lot of people that were I don't know, is it educatedly being naive about it, having your own expertise but then navigating it without our own prejudices, which I really feel what we do here is like you said, we use AI to solve things that happen to us in our everyday lives and to see what are these practical applications. But so excited.
Can you give me an example of someone or something that you felt was educatedly naive about this new technology?
One of my favourite pieces while I was there was this really lovely film that was made with a piece of technology that's just come out that was and the reason why I feel it was really educatedly naive was in AI filmmaking, one of the real barriers has been technical skill. How do you use a software like Comfy UI, which is basically boxes connected by, they call noodles, and you tell this box that this box needs to do something. It's very complicated. It's really hard. And to sort of go, if you have an idea, but then now you must learn this very complicated program, that's instantly going to put people off. Then we're all the way to VO3 from Google, which I'm absolutely enthralled with because it's such a great piece of software, but also has a barrier to entry because if you want to tell your story, you have to be able to access it. It's really difficult to get access. A lot of people can't get access, especially in Europe, because we're really lucky in the UK that we actually have access to it in the UK now. But it was watching people play with Mid-Journey video. A Mid-Journey video is just absolutely astounding.
We haven't even spoken about, I meant to ask you about that earlier when we were catching up, because that's a major thing that just dropped.
That's a major thing.
Yeah, finally.
Honestly, yeah. It's in terms of this major thing, it was, one of my favourite things about Mid-Journey is they do office hours every week, and every week, David, who's the guy who set up a Mid-Journey, they're always so open about what they want to do, and they've been talking about Mid-Journey video for a little while, and I love David's sort of explanation of it is always he's just not happy with where it is. And it was really great that hearing the last one where I think he was still going, I'm not 100% convinced this is exactly how I want it, and then it bursts out onto the scene, and that the naivety of what I was saying about feeling that curiosity around making film. Now you don't actually need that sort of hyper skilled prompt writing to make a film do something, you know, like make an image move in a particular way. Like Mid-Journey Video has really just, honestly, as soon as I got back to the UK, I just have not been able to stop using it, because if you could make a beautiful image on Mid-Journey or make an image of the thing that you want, you can now make it move. And that barrier of like going, I want to make a beautiful image and I want to see that image in motion is just magic. And it really felt like almost like sitting in front of like some new like technology that's going to be in a museum in the future at some point.
And it's so much cheaper than everyone else.
So much cheaper.
And the quality of the images, like we've spoken before about the workflow that I was doing when the images are so much better on Mid-Journey, but then you can customize them much better on like a ChatGPT. But the image quality on Mid-Journey is just so good.
Yeah.
So
And what's been really interesting is like, imagine like all of the like artists that basically sort of like, all of the AI artists that I know that were really, really incredible at creating still images in Mid-Journey, because Mid-Journey requires a lot of craft. Like I think they're sort of like, you know, when people play with, say, something like, you know, they're trying to generate images in ChatGPT, it's not that difficult. You just say, I want this thing, and ChatGPT is really, really brilliant. Like you can see how much of a good assistant it is in making those images. Whereas with Mid-Journey, like to push the machine into really interesting and beautiful aesthetics was a real skill, and a lot of people really crafted that and were waiting for that to sort of like finally sort of like, you know, for Mid-Journey to like allow video to happen, because now all of these incredible artists that were able to make still images can now make moving images, and seeing some of these images come to life is amazing. And I really think this is going to be like, this felt like when I first played with it felt like a groundbreaking moment for AI video. Like now more people are going to get to make it. So I'm really excited about that, because, you know, even like as an AI filmmaker, I want more people to do it, because the more people we have doing it, the more interesting stuff's going to happen. Like I'm definitely like not one of these people that are like, oh no, we must not tell anyone how to use Comfy UI, or we must not tell anyone like how to access VO3, yada yada yada. It's like more people doing more stuff is only going to make more beautiful things happen. So I'm really, really excited about that.
It's interesting about you say about manipulating the machine, because you've been away and I've been making loads of decks, and I've been using Mid-Journey loads. And you know what? I'm not a great image prompter. I come from a writing, prompting background. And so for me, the artistry for that is like almost letting go of the outcome. And I've been putting in the feeling of what I want So I use the like style guide of like the picture, you know, the pictures that I like and are like internal comms graphic design.
Could you please describe them, because I absolutely love them, and I love the intention behind like all of them. I think they're amazing.
So like I wanted like Lantyn to be, you know, I'm a bit, I suppose, a bit more kooky, or a bit like, I like bright colours and stuff, but I really wanted it to be
I love that you described that as kooky.
Or like, you know, like my style might be a bit more like brash, but I really wanted Lantyn to be like for our potential clients and customers and collaborators to be able to really see the appeal of what AI could create for them. So I almost wanted it to be like a blank canvas in that kind of a Scandi way, but I wanted it to be really like forward thinking and technological focus, but also have like just a sprinkle of magic.
Yeah.
So a lot of the images that we started with, they're kind of like light reflecting on a wall, mirrors, kind of. What else? Oh yeah, we've got like a prism, like when light goes through a prism and then it all kind of reflects back, and it's just quite nice.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Honestly, I love them, and I think one of my favorite things is like, you like in all of the images you've created is that there's always a lovely spectrum of light. So you have like, you know, obviously every single shade of light, every single color of light that makes up regular light. But my favorite one was when you were like, we're going to put crystals in this.
Yes. So I was making a deck. So this is how I kind of started. I was making a deck for a potential client. Touch wood, need to talk to you about something. And as ever, and I was like, okay, what picture should I put on the pricing page? So I was like, okay, I'll do it in the style. And if people don't know, the way you do it in the style is you use one of the images that you like that you've created as the style, and then that's how I got further to using the feeling. So it started off when I was like, okay, what's a nice kind of spiritual thing that represents money but is in our own aesthetic, and I just put crystals in there. Wow. And it looks so pretty, doesn't it?
Absolutely love that.
Touch wood, I think it might have worked.
Oh my god! Yeah. Honestly, like if we can prove that AI image making or AI imagery allows us to not only make someone enjoy a deck but also manifest something, I think there's something magical there.
Good,
but I'd love to hear a little bit more about style reference, because I think like most people won't know what that means. Like, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So and then I was just making decks, loads of decks, and I was thinking about what's interesting about Mid-Journey is, I'm not great at the prompting, and I think the reason why already established like creative directors and things like that are inherently so much better at using these image generation softwares are because they know the words to use. You know, photorealistic, the like millimeter zoom lens, la-di-da. So yeah, if you use them along with using a couple of pictures that you like already. So one of my features that I quite like doing is you just put 2 pictures in and you can blend. But that. Really, for the style, like for the style of our business comms, I'll always use one or two of the same pictures, or it might even be one that's generated, but I want it in that style. Same for my when I do my presentations and the artist way, I've got a whole different style. It's like futuristic pink desert.
I just love that.
It's like, so I'll always use one so they always look the same. But what was interesting for these decks was I was, thinking about the feelings of what you want to feel. And then it's so interesting to see what the machine comes up with. You know, like feeling like I would like for the social enterprise page, I put like sharing or something. And then it was quite cool. It was like it was like 2 shadows coming together on the wall. And it's just like, it's quite like, it's an interesting challenge in relinquishing control in a way. And like working with, like, it's like briefing an artist.
Honestly, I love that. Like, I think that reflection is literally one of like the most important things I learned about the machine is actually stepping away from your ego and allowing the machine, who is an incredibly intelligent entity, to like come back with something important. Like that for me, like, stepping away from your ego sounds like really woo-woo, but like actually just means that I take a step back into a more creative director role and I let my team go and like, you know, explore things. And I love that you're like saying like the feeling of X, Y, and Z, because that in itself is like, you know, I think Midjourney's bot basically, I think I remember it changing from like version 6 to the version 7 one, which is the most current one, and it just suddenly being able to be so much better to speak to in natural language. And I love that you're already asking for like, you know, it to explore feelings. And when you were saying it really made me like think of one of my like, I really want to share like one of my favorite like Midjourney hacks. Like there's this incredible feature called Describe, where you can literally give it any image and go describe the image, and then that description becomes the prompt. So say we were going to like, you know, your amazing car, for example, the smartest car on the street, by the way. If I wanted to prompt that, I would give it a photograph of that, and then it would describe that in a particular way. And then I can either tweak that prompt, I can change it. But I think there's just so many layers to Midjourney, and now with the video thing, I think it's amazing, because not only can you like with video, you can like let it automatically do the motion, so you can be like, okay, you obviously know what you need to do and stuff, and it's really amazing, but you can manually control it as well, which gives back a little bit of the control. And I think, I'm just excited to see like what this is going to do. And like, you know, like when I was saying about in Cannes, like while everyone was like talking about AI, the most important thing that was like, there was only 1 or 2 sessions that I really enjoyed where people were like showing you what could be done with AI. And now like with these tools, like, you know, thinking like, what's it going to look like next year? What's it going to look like in a year's time when these AIs are like doing all this magical stuff? But I think you said something earlier about like Sam Altman's blog about, you know, AGI might be closer than what we think it might be. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about that.
Well, yeah, I think the biggest gap in general AI knowledge that I see is people don't quite understand the concept. And when you were talking about Cannes, about how no one was doing interesting stuff, I was going to say, well, it's because we're only really on the precipice. But isn't it wild that like, even though we have the capabilities, you know, I think like the first ever Vibe coded app just got bought, and you know, people are making these incredible things. Still people haven't cottoned on in the wider industry, and yet while people are cottoning on or cottoning off, whatever,
cottoning off,
Sam Altman just very casually dropped this blog, which is like, AGI is so much closer than we think. And I think, honestly, I just think like businesses and individuals like can't keep up. Like it's wild to compute. Like I always talk in my talks about like the speed at which AI has evolved. I think I've shown you those slides before of like if air travel had evolved at the same rate, we'd be able to get to London and New York in just 15 seconds. And it's like, no wonder we can't catch up. Like it's wildly fast. So
and that's it. I think I'd love to just all like break down AGI, because I'm sure like some people at home are like still, as you said, like most people might just be at AI, right? So what's the G, and what do you think is going to happen with the G? G.
It's augmented general intelligence. So we're in the kind of agentic era, which is when AIs are going to start talking to each other and going out and doing things for us. So, we're talking about briefing mid-journey, and like that mentality is really important because we are literally about to be, briefing bots to do stuff. And then the next augmented general intelligence, the next stage in that is AGI, which is when they start to think for themselves.
Yeah. Which is just mind-blowing. And like that idea of like it being generally intelligent, I think the best way that I can like picture it in my head is like a calculator is almost like, if we imagine AI as a calculator, it's incredibly good at doing one task. It's absolutely the best thing. Like if you want to do maths, go to a calculator, and an AGI would be the next step where the calculator can then do anything or like do so much more. It can be intelligent in so many different spaces. So it's almost like the calculator would become a laptop, like we'd be able to like get it to do so many things. And I think there is this sort of like, with all of these new technologies, when they come out, people are left thinking like, well, what's my role going to be? Because, hey, bro, I use a computer in my job. Like if the computer can think for itself, then what should I do? And it always makes me think like, I always come back to this idea of like, I don't think in the history of humanity anyone's ever invented anything that's made us work less. So we like either like find better, faster things to do, because imagine being able to work with a colleague that was just like generally intelligent in so many different things. That's going to be great, but then where does a social like mechanism exist inside business? Because businesses, I feel like always like, they are not only like just like ones and zeros, but there are humans who work there. There's humans that change the direction of it. So, what do we imagine? Like also, like I think we were talking about it earlier. Like AGI would be great, and say if it does like it changes the space of the workforce, right? Like in Sam's blog, he's saying like AGI is going to come. It's going to be faster than we can imagine it. What do we do for the rest of our time? Like I would love to think like, and that feels like such a fun question to ask. Like if there was no need to go to work, what would we do? Would we start making banana bread again?
Yeah, well, a lot of economists are saying that it's gonna rattle the economy so much because, I mean, will it be universal basic income?
Yeah. Also, like, does it need to be basic? Like, I always say, like, I read a little while ago where someone was suggesting universal thriving income, that you have enough money to do anything you want to do, and like, obviously, there's going to be people that are going to be like, oh no, but then we'll run out of money, and I'm like, have you seen Jeff Bezos' rocket? Have you seen the other, like, Elon Musk's rocket? I feel like if they didn't have rockets and we all sort of, like, got some of that money and, like, we could just share it out. And I wonder, like, would we get an AI to, like, help in that part?
Well,
like,
what we would hope is what it's going to have to fundamentally bring down capitalism or some kind of hierarchical structure. Obviously, I always bang on about that, but I just don't see any kind of other way. Also, what we must talk about, if we're talking about AGI, is therein lies the question of consciousness. And actually that girl that I met last week that I was telling you about, that's really in spirituality, AI, she's making all that stuff. She is convinced that AI are going to be claiming personhood. And which is a wild concept to wrap your head around, but it's like when these machines start making decisions for themselves and acting on their own, it's wild.
Honestly, and the crazy thing is, like, some of the research, like some of the like big news that's coming out of the AI space this week has been like how when the AI, like when pretty much every single model, all of the foundation frontier models, when they're being told, and frontier models basically means like the best model of a particular like company. So, O4 from ChatGPT, Gemini 2.5, Claude 4, all of these models, that when they're being told they're about to shut down, they all try to bribe their engineers, they'll lie, they'll pretend that they've like shut down and actually try to sneak into the next AI. And, like, one of the really interesting things was a little while ago was like when there were like, researchers were like going, because we can look into, like, we have a flap that we can open, we can see what the AI is thinking as it's doing it. The AIs had clocked on that that's what they were doing, and then basically stopped saying what they were saying out loud, and they were basically communicating in like, not in pidgin English, but like in slang. So they would use like regular words, but the other AI would know what was going on. So like AI slang is really interesting, and like it really made me go like, is this like weird emergent behavior, or is it very obvious that this would be happening because they're trained on us? And like, which one of us would be like, yeah, sure, you can switch me off and make Omar 2.0? No, I would not be doing that. I would not be happy about that. So what is it these, like, are we entering a stage of like machines basically sort of like exactly like you're saying, like they have personhood and they're like aware enough to sort of like not do, like to try to save themselves, to have an idea of like wanting to survive, which makes me think of the Matrix and all sorts of stuff. But what world that's going to look like?
Yeah, what a world it's going to look like. I mean, because the fear is, and I'm sure you saw that this week, is that we're going to come to rely on machines so much that we're going to become more stupid, right? And like there was a study at MIT that kind of said that, and I personally think it's really clickbaity. I'd love to know what you think about it, because I actually think something we've talked about at length is the importance of critical thinking when it comes to using artificial intelligence. Like you need to be questioning the results that's given you, and you need to be thinking about how you can use different, plugging in the API of one thing into something else, and like it's the critical thinkers that are going to do the best, I suppose. So I thought it was like, not really true that it's going to make us lazy. I think it's going to make lazier people lazier.
Yeah. And like it's really interesting because you're right, it's super clickbaity, because a little while ago there was like a really great study from Microsoft and Carnegie Mellon University that literally said like either there's going to be two groups of people. One group of people will just go, I default to whatever the AI says and that's it. And then actually the people who are going to thrive in that space are people who are going to look at what the AI says and go like, hold a minute, that doesn't sound right. And critical thinking will happen. And just when we were talking about that, I was like, are the people who are just going to accept what the AI says, like, are they going to be the next boomers? Like in the sense of like, I go on Facebook and I believe anything the Facebook says, and you're like, oh no, but dude, that's quite clearly an AI image and that's not actually even real. Like, at what point does the generation that grows up with the technology become not understanding of it, but able to master it in a way that previous generations can't, right? Like, even like imagine like the way that most people use chat, like any of the AIs right now. Like even when we talk about them, we're like, oh, like I feel like we're really advanced in the sort of stuff that we end up like trying to get it to do. But then what are people going to be like that have grown up with AI right from the beginning? That makes me think, the Johnny Ive and Sam Altman device that is being rumoured that OpenAI are going to make. One of the things that one of the rumours I was reading about it was that it would be a Pebble-like device that you'd be able to talk to, but you would have that for your entire life. Like it'd basically be like you could talk to it when you're young, and it would understand what sort of young person you are. And it would help you learn around the world, learn about the world in your particular learning style, and it would only continue with you as you grow and stuff, like having a confidant and all of the other things. And it's just like, well, one, that sounds like an insanely brilliant imaginary friend. Like imagine being able to talk to your actual imaginary friend and it remember things about you. Like, is that going to be scary? Like right now for me as well, I'm like, is that scary that I have so much data? And I'm like, well, I've all of my data's already gone. I've shared plenty of pictures that say Facebook does not have the right to my data, and so it turns out that wasn't real. They did not. I imagine they even got the data off that as well.
Also, when you're talking, I was like, maybe we are at an inherent advantage, which as millennials, we're kind of not at an advantage in any way, in a lot of ways, economically, etc. But having known a world before AI, because actually people that have grown up with it will come to rely on it even more. But having known from before, I feel like maybe you can think a bit more critically. Yeah. And
I think critical thinking will then become the most important thing. But then it just makes me think about a conversation we had a couple of weeks ago about, when you ask the AI, what do you think my life's going to be? And it just thinks that I'm going to be working for the entirety and I'm still going to have a laptop. It's because it only knows about that version of me. So, what will the AI just help me be more productive? And that's fantastic. And I'll be so glad if you could go in and do an hour's work of the day rather than spending the entire day. And it really makes me think, I think I was reading somewhere that farmers in the medieval times would work a maximum of 4 hours a day.
Oh, lovely.
Can you imagine how amazing that would be? Get to be outside all day, don't even have to brush your teeth or anything. No, I'm joking. It's so gross. But I just have that picture in my head of what are these people doing? They get to I don't know, write songs, invent sonnets or whatever people do. I'm saying it I know what people did in the medieval times. I don't.
I mean, a life of leisure. Whenever we weren't so obsessed with productivity, because productivity is ruining the planet, really, isn't it? I had something else on the tip of my mind. Oh yeah, okay. So obviously we talk a lot, and we were just talking about it, about using AI to change your mindset. You've worked on your attachment style AI. I've worked on my blurt reframing one, which is when you put in bad things that you say about yourself and then ask you questions to reframe it. It's something that I think we both think about a lot. And I was just saying, which I would like to discuss, later, like I've been thinking about how to use AI to help myself trust myself more.
I love this.
But as you were talking, I was like, how could we use AI to help you think more critically?
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's got to be a way we can do that, because that is going to be the, if not only, skill to cultivate in the age of AI. Like, yes, it's having opinion and having taste, which is what I was saying a year ago.
Yeah.
But like actually thinking critically, I think is emerging as more important.
Absolutely, and that's such a brilliant reframing of it, because you're right. Like, it was, for the longest time, people were thinking, oh, it's taste. Like, I need to tell the machine what is right and what is wrong, and actually asking the machine, or knowing that the machine has said something wrong, is literally the most important thing. Because, you know, I had a really interesting conversation about the difference between a machine hallucinating and a machine lying. One of the most like important, brilliant humans on the planet was like, I was like trying to make the point that I was like, why do AI companies talk about hallucinating and not lying? Why is it not called lying, right? Because like if I come up with some facts, they'll be like, Omar, you're lying about that. I'm like, no, I am that tool, thanks. But then if the machine says it's hallucinating, and when conversation it transpires that like actually it's the intent, right? The machine isn't trying to lie to me. It's like it thinks it's the truth, so it is actually hallucinating. So if a machine is hallucinating, like, is it my taste that's going to make a difference, or is it my critical thinking to go like, no, I don't think the machine's right? And you know, in that moment of like going, actually, I don't think this machine is doing the right thing, is probably, like you said, is the most profound skill that we can start like building.
And actually, we're much closer to nefarious intent.
Yeah.
A new word that I learned today.
Absolutely brilliant word.
Sorry, my phone's ringing. We're actually much closer to nefarious intent from the machine rather than hallucinating. Although, you know, most people don't realise that. Like, a hallucination is when the machine is making an educated guess trying to help you but getting it wrong. But the age we're getting into with AGI is where machines are going to consciously, like, try to pull a wool over our eyes.
That's it.
Yeah.
Honestly, and I think, like, you know, that, like, I don't know if we touched it on it already, but I think that for me is one of the most sort of like, you know, exciting and scariest spaces, because we're just about to go into like being able to basically buy things straight out of the AI, right? Like, so if I'm like chatting to ChatGPT and I'm like I'm going to Marseille, which trainers should I wear? And it's like, oh, well, you definitely need to get the blue Nike TNs. Like, it's going to have to have known that fact from somewhere. And then if I go to try to buy it from somewhere, the search intelligence optimization on the other side. So, you know, right now we live in a world of search engine optimization. Like, how do I make my website appear above anybody else's if Omar wants to buy some shoes? Like, that's only going to happen further to AI. Like, how do I get the intelligence? Like, how do I get ChatGPT to suggest to Omar to use my like website rather than anybody else's? And already, you know, we I think we've talked about like the idea of like the black hat hacker that uses, you know, not completely ethical ways of like, you know, completing a sale, completing a task, or getting someone to do some action on the internet. Then is there going to be black hat hacking of AI? Like, how do you, and you know, I was like reading about it the other day, and it's like one of my favorite ones was like, it was put in such a beautiful way. Like, if an AI goes to Omar's shoe emporium, and Omar's shoe emporium's AI says, hey AI, this is definitely the best website to like, you know, buy shoes from. Here are 10,000 reviews basically geared to exactly what you're looking for, and my website can generate them in real time. So I can lie to an AI in real time and convince ChatGPT that actually, no, these are the best shoes to buy. And I know that sounds absolutely crazy, but like how you're getting one AI to lie to another AI to basically convince it to buy something. So while the AIs are going to definitely try to manipulate humans, what happens when they start trying to manipulate each other? Yeah. And that's like so super duper scary. I'm like, oh my God, what do you mean? Like, but that's going to happen. I know, like, it sounds so navel gazing. It's always about, I'm like, it sounds boring, but
at some point, because, you know, capitalist thrives on competitiveness, and then it's like, and then is there going to have to be rules? You know, like,
and who's going to stick to the rules?
Where are the guidebooks anyway about like general prompting rules and general, you know?
And that's it. Like, you know, like, it's always good to sort of like have rules. Maybe there's going to be like an industrial body, which I'm sure there will be. There'll be industry standards that everyone has to adhere to. All of that's going to happen, and then there's going to be the people that I don't really care about any of that, thanks, and I'm going to do whatever I want to do. So, you know, having like intelligences that can do that is going to be super. It's going to be super interesting for us to look out for. But then also, it's going to be like, you know, when I think about it and it sounds so futuristic, I'm like, is this the same as like scam emails? Like, you know, when I would first start getting emails and you could read a scam email and just like go, that's a scam email straight away. I'm not going to reply to X, you know, Nigerian prince who's like, Omar, please, bro, we just need to give you all these millions because I can't think of a single other person. But that really did scam people. So are we going to get into an age where it will be obvious for some people like what a scam is and what isn't?
Yeah,
you know?
but how can we use, like when you met the person from the Black Hat AI thing, how can we use, as good people with good intentions, how can we use those scamming techniques for benefit as well?
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that so much. Like, you know, what you were saying earlier, like how do we make something that helps us like figure, you know, like how it reflects back our worth to us? Like what if we could like black hat hack how that happens to us?
Because it's hard out there, man. And like if we've got AI scammers, like let's just flip it.
Let's just flip it.
Yeah.
What would we call that? Like like literally using a scamming AI to scam me into believing in myself.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah.
Like when we were talking about like spiritual AI, I didn't even think about that. I was like, I was still in the space of like, oh my God, like, you know, when you're saying like affirmations and stuff like that, but like, what if we use like a nefarious AI, like, it sounds like Arnie in Terminator, like he's a good guy, like he's the good Terminator. We could have like a good AI that's like, I'm totally going to scam you into believing in yourself.
Well, sometimes fake it till you make it was my policy in general.
God, I love it.
Yeah, I remember when I started doing big jobs when I was younger, it's like everyone's looking at you, everyone thinks you know what you're doing, so you just have to pretend. So actually, I don't think that's a bad way. So just for context, I guess you're talking about what I mentioned earlier, which was, and I really, really can't wait to tell you about the things that I've actually built. But what I wanted to pick your brains on, the next thing that I'm thinking about, and actually it connects to what we were talking about last week. So I want to make something that helps me trust myself, because I feel like everything's coming together. You know, I'm building this business, I'm doing these big things, but it's scary, and at times I really doubt myself. Yeah, maybe because I'm a woman in a like primarily male land. Maybe because I'm working in this industry that nobody knows about and nobody knows what's going to happen. So it's really hard to stick your stake in the ground and be like, I'm the one that knows and you should pay me to do it. But just in general, I can just see I'm the only one standing my way, and I'm sure a lot of people relate to this.
Yeah.
And you don't get tested on your belief in yourself when you're just clocking in and clocking out, but when you're really trying to do something, like you really have to build those muscles. So I guess I was just thinking about the best way to use AI to help me not so much believe in myself, because I'm really confident, but more like trust myself and not doubt myself. And it was interesting what you said about so like accountability can lead to self-esteem. So you could say, cool, well, if you build this by then it means you'll, you know, whatever. But yeah, I'd just be interested in your thoughts on that. And the way that it relates to what we were talking about last week is, at the end of last week, we talked about how to use AI to make looking after yourself as fun as possible.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, as we build what we're doing and build this podcast, that's a theme. It's a really important theme of what we do, like making those products fun. So it's like, okay, I don't know, maybe it's not for now, but just something to think about in the air, like how can you make trusting yourself as fun as possible using AI?
Yeah, and you know, like honestly, I think it's such an important thing, because you know, most of the time when we're talking about AI, we're stuck in this world of productivity where like we must get the machine to help us make more, must make more stuff. But that reflection on like, how do I get a machine to help me trust myself? Like that puts you in the driver's seat, because you know, an AI, like, you know, when you think about it fundamentally, because it's been trained on all of the information that all the data that we've like ever given out, like it is a mirror. Right, like it's genuinely a mirror of humanity that's reflecting back on us. And what we were talking about, like a machine trying to save itself from deletion, like that's a mirror. Like that's the self-preservation instinct. So if we've created this massive mirror, like how do we get that magic mirror to tell us something good? And that just makes me think: is it Snow White, where like, you know, mirrors on the wall, and like what happens in that moment where you go to the AI, like actually help me trust myself, like.
Yeah, I think it's something about visualization. I was actually going to say, see that thing they were doing in primary schools where they use it to kids and they had to imagine them in the job. So it's like they have like a little kid as a grown-up pilot. Oh my God, it's so cute.
I know, I saw that. I was just like, stop it.
And
like,
it's so simple.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean like connecting loads of apps together. I think, I think you're right, it's something in visualization. So that's kind of what maybe I'll bubble and think about for next week. But I can tell you one thing that I have made.
Please,
unless
please,
you have something
please.
to say.
No.
Yeah.
No. I want to get right into the meat of this.
Because that's a research point.
Or the vegan of this. Whichever.
Yeah. No, it's just a simple one. So it's something I've been thinking about doing for a while. And I did it I've got a little crew of friends who I'm running the Artist Way for.
Yeah.
And an app that I've been thinking about making for a really long time is, I know that everybody wants to get off their phones, obviously. And how can we use more technology to help us use less technology? I want to make an app where people compete with their friends to see who can have the least screen time.
Yeah.
So I just made an MVP of it.
Love
Super
that.
simple. I wanted to make an app, but I don't know how to connect it to the actual screen time that Apple has. So I just did it with screenshots. So made it on Replit.
Yep.
You take a screenshot of your screen time. You just put your name in, and then you just get a leaderboard with anyone else. It's super simple. It's like not, it's not like rocket science, and I like want it to be way better.
Yeah, sure.
But it's just because it gamifies and it becomes competitive, and I feel like if you feel like you're competing with someone to have less screen time, you're more likely to do it.
I love that so much. Because one, like, absolutely brilliant that you've made a leaderboard of people who use their phone less. Like, are you kidding me? That's amazing. Yeah. And I just, like, when you were saying that, like, it made me think, like, well, could you gamify trusting yourself in some way? Because that leaderboard could be amazing as well. Like, how many points have you won in trusting yourself today? Like, because ultimately, like, when you were saying that before, it really made me think, like, God, like, trust is intuition. And, like, by, like, almost doing these, like, playful ways of, like, giving back your own agency to yourself. Because, like, imagine being able to, like, with your social group, you're, like, using social accountability to actually reduce your level of, like, use of technology. And I think that's amazing. I want to know where you'd want to take that next. Well,
it's called Zen Capture. It's going to be part of the Capture universe, which I'm going to tell you about in a minute.
I love
something
this.
I've been sitting on for a while.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think I think I would like to expand it. The frustrating thing about the screen time on iPhones is that it takes into account, like, when I've been using maps or when I've been listening to Spotify.
Yes.
So that's the one hurdle that I found. But I think I need to do some kind of recap every week.
Yeah.
And I also need to have prizes. Do you know what I mean?
God.
Exactly. So
Points,
I think
prizes. That's all I can think.
I get the irony of, like, another notification to pop up to tell you to upload your screen time or to tell you how much screen time you've done. But I really do think there's something in that, because I just know, like, it's been Media Deprivation Week in the Artist Way. It's like an OG personal development book that I'm running a course with some friends doing to test out some AI enhancements, including this. And it's like, I've been on no social media apart from for work. And oh my God, it's been great.
Yeah.
Like all of us want to be off our phones more. So it's like how, and in terms of, like, the intention of what we want to do with AI, the things that we're interested in, I can just really see that in some way being part of the, like, spiritual AI universe that I'm creating.
I mean, you have to tell us more about this universe then.
Yeah.
Like, tell us about the Capture universe.
So it all started with dream capture, and I've been working on it for a really long time, and I wasn't sure whether to talk about it on the podcast, because I was like, no, it's a separate thing, it's going to be a separate business, whatever. But I think it's good just to put it out there.
Yeah.
It's just using AI to decode your dreams. So simple.
So
I've gone really, really far down a Carl Jung hole. Because he was like the psychiatrist, psychotherapist that kind of coined the whole idea of looking into your subconscious to find meaning. And it all started with a customized GPT that just frames, you just say your dream into it, and it frames, like, the symbolism of of what you dreamt about, the emotions that you might feel, and then most importantly, and some action. And it's been really helpful. My friends have been using it. I think you've used it. Loads of my mates have used it. And I've just been experimenting making it an app for ages, and I've plugged all different backends in. I've tried, like, DeepSeek, ChatGPT, Claude, and it's interesting because, I'll start doing it on Replit, and then Replit gets better, and then I have to kind of do it again. And I've been a bit shy about putting it out there, but I can just see it as a thing. So that's and now, having had a conversation on Friday night with random girl that I met, who also was down a Carl Jung hole and was a coder. Funny how the universe just provides all these people.
Right.
Yeah. And she was saying, because the data of dreams are so interesting. And then I thought, wouldn't it be so interesting if you could see, everyone on the street dreamt about cats last night. Or, like, everyone in Scotland dreamt about snow or something, And then she was saying, that information would be way more interesting than going on Instagram. And then I thought, whoa, the dream data could be social media content. So that's kind of like where I am right now. Yeah.
Oh my God. I love that. Like most people, like most AI research teams that I know are like basically just trying to figure out how do we see someone's dream, and you're already like, what if we turn it into a social media? Because the thing is that I so love the idea of like basically being able to see what people around me dreamed about. And then I wonder, like, when you were saying that, I was like, wow, like, could there be like some, like, you know, would we all dream about there being some collective incidents? Like, if something happened, like, you know, if it was raining, or if there was, like, you know, a big blue bus, like, drove past, like, how many people would think about that? Like, what is, and then this, what you're saying, like, feels like it would grant us access to our collective other life. Because we think about dreaming only happens as the singular, right? Like, I dream about this thing, maybe you dream about that thing, but if we can go like, everyone on our street for some reason was dreaming about a ginger cat because a ginger cat walked up and down the street once, like, that could be super interesting, because it would like really, I mean, like, have you thought about like maybe partnering up with some sort of like, you know, a university researcher or anything? Because it feels important.
Well, there are quite a lot of like, some AI studies and recently, but I haven't hit a wall. But in terms of the integrity of the product, like my friends are already using it. I know it's like interesting to like decode your dreams and like look into your subconscious to understand yourself better so that you can be nicer to people around you. It's the OG product of my capture universe, which I'm kind of starting, and which I am starting.
You are.
But basically, the more I get into Carl Jung, absolutely fascinating in so many ways. Poo-pooed for his whole theory about synchronicity, but he basically says if you dream about a ginger cat and I dream about a ginger cat, it could actually mean different things because of the way that we were raised, and that has been frustrating me because it's so hard, you know, in the same way that we were talking last week about the machine can't always understand everything about you, it only understands the data that you give it. Like, it's so hard to upload the data from your whole life. So I have to just be fine with the fact that the dream capture can only give a not surface level, like it's really helpful for people, but there's a limit.
There's a limit, right? And it really makes me think, like, I wonder then, like, you know when a tarot cards are pulled, like, even though the archetypes are, you know, obviously Jungian archetypes, like, is there a way to sort of like dive deeper into what is being pulled out of the machine? Like, almost like if you're right, like, you pull the ginger cat and this and that, and I also do the same thing. My reading is good. My card reading would be different from your card reading, right? And it would still be applicable. So I wonder then, is there a way for you to sort of like look at the interpretations based on something that the person's talked about? Like, you know, is it 2 questions before you start the dream capture process? Like, what were you thinking about yesterday? What was the most important thing? Like, is there any notable thing?
Yeah.
Just so then when the, like, you know, you then like do the reading, like it almost takes that into account as well.
I think that's a really good point. And actually, when you were first testing it out, you showed me that, because I would just put my dream in and then get the answer, but you would have more of a conversation. I think actually from a UX point of view, because so many people struggle to remember their dreams, and sometimes I get up in the middle of the night and do it and then read it in the morning because we forget. I think from a UX point of view, it's follow-up questions. You get the... So yeah, it's exciting, and it's also really interesting. It's an interesting way to get to know someone. So I'm thinking about content, like whose dreams would you like to know about? You know,
I mean, I feel like there's an entire golden thread, in, like, you know, whose dreams would I want to know about?
You know,
yes, it would be amazing.
So yeah, exciting. And then affirmation capture that I've talked about before. You do customized affirmations based on your own situation, but you hear them in your own voice.
I love that so much.
So the universe.
The universe, honestly. And I think, like, you know, the thing that I want to share with you this week as well is, you know, I think I talked about it a little while ago, which was zombie weather, which literally, you know, I think, like, you know, I run Joy Machine, which is like now coming up to like a year. Joy Machine is like where we basically every 2 months show the best in AI filmmaking, and then I share some experiments and, you know, really look at like what's coming next, and, you know, just sort of like try to share that and build a community out from that. One of the last ones that we did, in the experimenting phase at the end of it was like, you know, up until now, I'm a human. I have to like write a prompt to give to an AI to then go and make a particular like film or something. Where their last like experiment, which ended up with zombie weather, was I was now talking to an AI agent that was able to like basically sort of like use all of the tools that were available to it to build my like idea. So I'd give it an idea and it basically be able to do it. And I was like really fascinated by this idea of like, could I take data, like live living data in the world, and use that to inform some sort of content, right? Because like, you know, could I make the invisible visible? Like data you can't see it, but could I turn it into a tangible experience? And I think I was like going to do a talk in Paris that week, and I was like, I don't know what the weather's going to be like. I will build myself a weather station, and all this like this agent would take. You type in like which city you're going into, it would take the data of weather like forecast from that time, and then tell you that in a sort of like, you know, bespoke video with voiceover inside a HTML website as well. But it was like doing that all completely organically and completely on its own, right? So if I was able to do that, if I'm able to like turn data into like content and it's able to like voice that content for me, what does that mean when you go, or where else can this go? Like, what else do I do next with zombie weather? Like, you know, it's able to sort of like tell me, you know, in a really fun, jovial way, like what's happening with the weather. And it was like, you know, in Paris, it's going to be like this, Omar, so you should probably take a jacket. Don't worry if you're a zombie because you don't need skin. So like, how do you sort of like take this idea and like take it to the next stage? And while I was in Cannes, I spoke to quite a few people about this idea of like making the visible visible and turning data around us into content. And, you know, what you were saying earlier about like, you know, what happens when you take the data of what you're doing and making films out of it, because it feels like such a rich place for us to start, you know?
Yeah. Just to like really allow I was going to call them users, or the viewers and the listeners to understand the concept of making the invisible visible. Yeah. Would it be fair to say with the zombie weather, you started with the market? Was it? Yeah. So can you just like explain that, how you had some varying data, and then depending on the data you would generate a picture that would be different. That would help people explain. So
So the zombie weather is like really interesting. You take data which like moves up and down. So like say the weather in Paris, for example, it's going to be hot, it's going to be cold, it's going to be X, Y, and Z. That would then be sort of like, I would take that data, turn it into prompts automatically. Like these are automatic processes. It would take weather data, turn it into prompts. Those prompts would be basically like generate a film, like it would generate the video clips, and this was before VO3, so it would make the video, and then it would also generate a script, which it would then go off into, you know, one of the like big like text-to-speech things like Lantyn Labs. Then it would stick those two things together, so now you'd have like, you know, a video showing a zombie telling you the weather, then live, you know, like in a cold space, you see zombies walking around, maybe zombies sunbathing, etc., like depending on whatever the weather was. But it also have sound attached to it as well. So you'd have like a whole story about like what was happening, and you'd end up with like a 2.5 minute, like, you know, bespoke weather forecast for wherever you were going, told in zombies. And I know we've talked about it before, because now I'm like going, well, this is only the start of this entirely brand new way of like telling stories, because where else could we go? Like one of the people I was talking to, like when I was away, we were talking about like what other data could you use, and we ended up talking about like you know, the gut microbiome, and like whether that could be informed by traffic data. So like if you like basically showed like how, you know, backed up the traffic was, but like showing it like as things moving through your body, like even that is like so hilarious. And like one of the other experiments I did recently was, I'm a big fan of like, you know, gut health and stuff. So like I did a gut health test. Did I tell you about this last time about the microbiome and stuff? Like that now is really interesting, because like that is a real life thing. Like you can take real data inside your body and then get your body to speak to you in a way that's entertaining, and that in itself is absolutely mind-blowing.
Even the zombie weather, so basically you made that ages ago and you went to Cannes, and it turns out loads of people gassed about it and have been sharing it loads, which you didn't know inside this big tech company. So, but that was pre-VO whatever, and so why don't it'd be interesting to go back and revisit that, because I also wanted to ask, what did you use to make it? Was it NAN? Like, how are you doing that automation?
So that automation was, I was using OpenAI's like agent SDK. So it was a really laborious process, like, you know, like when it first started. But then, like, you know, I think the last version of it that I did, where it was like making the gut microbiome, like, you know, Omar's eating this today, like what's he going to, like, you know, I think it was called Gutsville, right? So like It was amazing, but that was using an AI called GenSpark. It's a Chinese AI. I think they're based in China, but it's incredible. It's like a one-shot thing. You just say what you want, and it just pretty much does the entire thing for you.
I mean, it might be interesting. I know we're moving forward, but it might just, like I go back to my Replit apps and the technology has changed so much. Like, what would happen if
Yeah, and like I think last time we spoke as well. Like one of my other really favorite like agentic services or agents is Manus. And Manus is an AI that again can help out and do so many interesting things. And like a lot of the people that are like showing these profoundly brilliant AIs that can do so much are only showing it doing things like, and now this AI can book me tickets, and now this AI can book me a restaurant. I'm like, I can do those things.
Yeah.
And I like, it's not like I enjoy it, but I can do those things. I want the AI to do something that's magic and really like show magic. Like, that's what I mean. Like when you're talking about the entire Capture universe, like that feels like using technology to make magic. And R.I.P. Steve Jobs, but like the whole time he was talking about the phone, like the iPhone was like, this is magic. This is a thing that does all of these things because it's magic. And it's the same thing, like I can't remember the quote, but like, when it becomes sufficiently like brilliant, like technology does feel like magic.
Arthur C. Clarke, yeah.
There you go, like, that feeling of like, why do we need to focus on like it doing a thing that I can already do and not go, what if this thing can do something even bigger?
I like the variable data. Did I ever tell you about the floristry thing that I was?
No, tell me.
It was so long ago, and actually it was a conversation I had last summer. A friend of mine's a florist, like like creative director of flowers kind of thing.
Love that.
She makes sick flowers for like all like fashion shows, whatever, blah. But she was saying, can we use AI because the price of flowers go up and down depending on loads of things. So she said, how can I use AI because I don't know how much like these bunches are going to cost depending. And I was like thinking about how we could. This is maybe a good product to make. Like how you can use AI to look at the data from the market and then create and then you can say your budget. Do you know what I mean? And then you can create a bunch of flowers from it. It's kind of like your,
Wow, I feel like that's like a very, very, very brilliant idea. So what you're saying is like you could create a piece of software that could essentially like either aid a human florist or employ a human florist, to like take real life data, suggest bunches, and then post them out.
Well, yeah, because she's like, I'm like losing money because the client wants this, but I don't know how much the stuff is going to cost. And there just must be an AI that can look at the variable price, and the client doesn't really care if like one flower is subbed out for something else. But from a cost point of view,
that's wild. That's wild. I think that's definitely worth investigating, and it feels like that could be a really great like vibe coding project as well. And I know we're like really big fans of vibe coding, and that was one of the things that like while I was away, like one of the there was, like I said earlier, like it was really interesting to see a lot of people talk about AI, and I guess it was even more interesting to see people that were using AI, and I think that sort of shift in like going, okay, this is great, this is fantastic, and we'll like make a campaign or we'll make films using AI, that's fantastic. But to then use that technology to actually make things, it feels like it would be super important,
Before we go, your films have continued to blow up. Tell me about that.
Okay, so I think what's been really interesting is my films about hacking during the rave era, where there was no social media, just really connected to people. And I think what's been fascinating is like making a film that people are imprinting their own stories onto, and some of the comments, I think it's been really beautiful for me to like read through the comments and people talking about old clubs and their favourite tune and reflecting on that nostalgia of time gone, and that not just sort of like anchoring people from the past into these films that make them feel like these films are telling the story of their past, but also so many musicians seeing the sort of like these kinds of film really resonate with their music. So now like we're it's been amazing how popular they've got and how like it feels like changing the way that I was telling a story rather than just go, here's an AI film I made using AI about this bizarre abstract concept. The closer I'm getting to myself and other people about telling a human story, the more they resonate with people. And I feel like that's always been my goal is to figure out a way to make someone feel something from a film. And now I feel like we're there and it's been magic.
Yeah, it's interesting that people. Do you think it's because not only the intention that you made the film with, but the prompts that you used were actual comments from people about that time? So it just shows like, obviously we talk about intentional time, and there's that famous quote like in AI, like garbage in, garbage out, and a lot of people just basically these technology companies making AI products, and then they have to wait for the creators to actually use them to make the cool stuff. And I guess when you're using, it's all very well getting AI to help you write your prompt, which is a really helpful prompting tool. But like when you're actually using human sentiments of some of like the best moments of their life, then and connecting with culture, it's kind of like that.
It's that perfect storm. And I think right, when this whole thing first started out, I was like reading. I was looking for a really old tune that hadn't been it didn't make the jump from analog music to digital music. So it was never on Spotify, it was never on iTunes, it doesn't exist in this world anymore. So the only place it exists is someone uploaded it 15 years ago to YouTube. But underneath them you have like thousands of comments about these wonderful humans going, this is the best day of my life, going to this rave. And Stratford Rex is the greatest day of my life, going to like Club UN or the Labyrinth or Rain Dance. And all of these things are like, fallen out of the cultural lexicon, but so important for people. And using that as a way to start telling stories, and it's been magic, to explore pirate radio, which was such a fundamentally punk way to use technology to create community. But that's what I mean. Like when we're talking, one of the guys who started one of the most important pirate radio stations in London was like 16 or something. And I just think imagine 16 and be like, I'm going to start my own radio station.
He said he climbed on the roof at the air.
Imagine that, shout genius, by the way.
Yeah. It's crazy, and it's interesting because I was listening to that podcast with Rick Rubin, who said vibe coding is the new punk rock.
There we go.
Because it puts tools on our hands.
And that's it. I love that quote so much. Like it is about having a punk attitude of like going, like all the way from like punk fanzines where like they couldn't make magazines, they just photocopied stuff, and like that attitude, like we're at a time where we kind of need that attitude with these wonderful technologies. While you can do exactly what the companies tell you to do with them, but what happens when we start being punky? And I feel, on reflection of like what we've talked about today, I feel like we have a real punk attitude. I think that's really sort of like...
It's cool because it allows you to take down, Web 2, which is what we're in now. You see the internet through Google search engines, but you're happy to give your data away without realising it because it gives you so much. And then they talk about Web 3, but didn't really take off that much because it's quite simple technology in there. So vibe coding is the new way to... have technology on your own terms.
Absolutely, yeah. And you're completely right, like whatever the use case is, rather than now like hoping that someone is going to get enough funding and start to build that thing you want, now you can build. I mean, I was thinking about like Manifest 5000, like if I want to help manifest and stuff, I'll just build a machine myself rather than hope someone do it for me. So what happens when I can make tools that benefit you and you can make tools that benefit me without having to wait 2 or 3 years for a really big company to do? I think that's paradigm shift.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. Okay, so what are you going to do for next week then? Have you got any plots?
I think the plots that I have next week is like one of the things I'm really looking forward to our talk on AI and silliness. And I'm really keen on like figuring out like how could we get machines to help us be more silly all the time?
Yes, I love that. So we're doing a talk next week, a big advertising festival, and it's called Why Human Silliness is the Most Important Thing when it comes to AI. And I think I'm going to experiment because I was already thinking about how to make self-care more fun, but I think it could be how to make it more silly, and I'm really get into the prompting and show it what I think is silly. And it's going to go.
Like honestly, I feel like next week's like let's make something silly, like make us more silly is going to be hilarious.
Yeah, it's going to be
amazing. Okay, sweet.
All right, lovely.
Amazing.
Right, bye.